We have some updates from summer workouts for the Hoosiers from their activity over the last couple of months, including Mackenzie Mgbako, as well as another young wing that could be due for a breakout season.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. You are Locked On Hoosiers, the one and only daily IU podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Shout out to everyone for tuning in, wherever it may be from. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm your host, as always, Jacob Rude. We had some summer updates. We've made it through a lot of the summer workouts. In fact, summer workouts are done for the basketball team. They'll be doing practices next time they get together. And we have some updates on what some of the Hoosiers have been doing, how they look, how their bodies have transformed over the last couple of weeks and months. 247 Sports' weekly show, College Basketball Recruit Weekly, talked about a number of top prospects in this 2023 class, as well as some top transfers. And Mackenzie Mgbako was a name that came up. Interesting. And I want to read to you what they said, and then we can dive into kind of the bits and pieces of it. It was Isaac Trotter with 247 Sports that had the following to say about Mgbako. He gained a lot of weight, guarding threes in practice. I think they want him to play the three. His jumper, honestly, wasn't a strength at times last year, but I think it can be in the future. It looks right. But my question is defensively. Can he move his feet? Is he able to guard threes? Is he able to switch on the occasional Big Ten twos? Those are my kinds of questions, because I think offensively he'll be able to figure it out in certain lineups. But man, the spacing is going to be a little bit iffy. This was in regards to what Mgbako's role was going to be on the Hoosiers, and that there are a lot of front court players. The gained a lot of weight part, to clarify, meant bulking up, not that he started to look like me and got fat. He has bulked up a little bit, which maybe not what you would expect for someone set to play the three, but kind of long-term, if he's looking past IU, bulking up was probably right, and he'll be more of a 3-and-D wing in the NBA. But they had a lot of questions about what Mgbako's role would be, how things would work for a crowded Indiana front court. Offensively, I think things can work. And we've talked about this before. Kaleb Ware is not your traditional center. He's someone that can space the floor, is comfortable at the three-point line. And Mgbako is someone that is also comfortable at the three-point line. Even Malik Renew is comfortable in space. I had less concerns about the fit offensively as they seem to have. I think those three pieces aren't seamless fits, Mgbako, Renew, and Ware, but they each can do enough to not be in the other one's way. And so I don't have as many concerns as they did about how that looks offensively. There are some concerns defensively, though. We've talked about Mgbako and the fact that I think, and I would assume that they would agree based on their comments, probably at his best at the four. I don't know how many minutes he will get at the four this season, but he's going to be asked to play a lot of three. Is he going to be able to defend threes in the Big Ten? Because a lot of times threes are not they're not Mackenzie Mgbako. They're smaller guards or bigger guards, or it's 3-guard lineups. Is he going to be able to handle that? Does he have the foot speed, like they said? Is he going to be able to guard those types of players? How switchable is he going to be? Is he someone that teams are going to look to attack on the perimeter? I think a lot of those questions we're not going to know the answers to until he gets on the floor and we see it in action. But what I would say is they were very kind of, I don't want to say pessimistic, but maybe critical about what IU's outlook was for the future offensively. I have less concerns about that. And there were some comparisons to Trace Jackson-Davis when talking about Kaleb Ware and how he was used. I don't anticipate those guys to know that IU is not running that offense this year and that things are going to look a lot different. I think that's one of the biggest things. But there were some questions raised. But the good news is it sounds like he had a good summer. He has shot the ball well during the summer by all accounts. I don't put much stock into that because everybody kind of shoots good in the practice gym and during workouts and things like that. When you get out there and play is where it'll matter, but that repetition can't hurt. So you can tell me someone shot good in practice. That's fine and dandy. And maybe that does translate, but as many times as it does, it doesn't. So I'm kind of wait and see on that, but there are some positives about him. The other person that they kind of mentioned in passing, Kaleb Banks. Adam Finkelstein was the host and the other person on the podcast or on the show, I should say. He said, I'm told has made significant strides this summer. It sounds like Kaleb Banks has had a really strong summer. And that was someone who the very tail end of last season broke into the rotation. Really when guys like Jordan Geronimo and Tamar Bates had fallen out of it. Mike Woodson kind of turned to him for some spot minutes. And I thought he looked fine in those spot minutes. If he can parlay that success and those opportunities at the end of last season into development and more minutes this season, things could get really interesting. IU has a hole at the small forward spot. I mean, Mackenzie Mgbako is kind of a square peg in a round hole. There's probably a better analogy. Mgbako can play the position. It's not his natural one. Banks potentially could be an option there as well. I don't really know who the backup three is for Indiana. Maybe it's, especially with how few guards they have, maybe it could have been like CJ Gunn in a 3-guard lineup, but I don't know that IU can afford to play 3-guard lineups. They might play some of them, but I don't know how much liberty they'll have to do that. And if it's not a guard, then someone like Kaleb Banks, maybe someone like Anthony Walker plays more of the 3 this year. I don't know how to look, but there's certainly opportunities there. So if Kaleb Banks had a strong summer, he's very much primed for a breakout season. If he's able to put the pieces together and build off the end of last season, I think he has a skill set that could be accentuated by this offense. And if IU's playing more in space, I think it's someone that could benefit Kaleb Banks from that extra space around him. So encouraging things, I think, overall. Take some of it with a grain of salt, some of the workout results, and I think a fair amount of skepticism about how things work offensively. But if you're an optimistic person, I think there's a lot you can take away from what we're hearing about summer and maybe expect IU to be a bit of a dark horse. I don't know. We'll see later on what they're voted for in the Big Ten standings. I don't know that it'll be top 4, top 5, maybe. We'll see. But I think IU could be a dark horse this year. It's going to be a really interesting year to see how they click, how they adapt to one another, and how they look in a new system. So I'm really fascinated to see how that plays out. Indiana added a pair of walk-ons, a pair of transfer walk-ons. We'll talk about them. One name might be familiar for everydayers. Another name will not be, but we'll talk about both of them here in a moment. I want to first talk to you about a new sponsor. Today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp, which is a terrific service, I guess, that they offer. BetterHelp is online therapy. You can give it a try. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnCollege. Sometimes in life, guys, we're faced with tough choices. Path forward isn't always clear, whether you're dealing with decisions around career, relationships, anything else. Therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. If you guys are thinking about starting therapy, be sure to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime with no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedoncollege today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedoncollege. As always, thank you to you guys for making us your first listen. Everydayers, later on this week, we'll continue to talk some football. There was some special teams news. We can talk about that later in the week. I don't know how much you guys want to hear about special teams and making that its own segment. Plus, we had some interesting basketball stuff to talk about. So we'll talk about that later in the week. Also, in case you missed it, listen to Monday's pod. Talked a lot about recruiting and how big of a month September is going to be for Indiana. So be sure to listen to that. Some new visits, some new offers, a lot of stuff packed into that one. So Indiana added a pair of transfer walk-ons. Not shockingly, I should say. One of them is a guard, Jordan Rayford. That was a name we mentioned, I was trying to think, a handful of weeks ago. Somebody that was visiting Indiana from Air Force. And we talked then that it didn't seem like someone that would receive a scholarship offer unless IU was really desperate. Turns out they weren't really desperate. Their offer to him was to transfer to IU and walk on. He transferred to IU and is walking on. He's one of those two walk-ons. He's listed as a 6'5" guard. He didn't play last season due to a shoulder injury, shoulder surgery. There's very little we know about him. And that was something we discussed when he visited before, that there is not much out on him at all. The other walk-on is a junior college transfer that we do know some about, Jackson Creel. He is from Rend Lake Junior College in Illinois. He spent 3 seasons there. What it sounds like is, from what I was able to kind of read and piece together and whatnot, his coach there was a friend with one of IU's women's assistant coaches. Phone calls were made, texts, whatever it might be in 2023. They were put in connection. And when he found out that transferring to IU was an option, he jumped on it. And so he spent 3 years in junior college. He started all 65 games he played in junior college across those 3 years. He's also listed at 6'5", but more of a wing than a guard. In junior college, he averaged 13.9 points, 4.8 rebounds, 3.7 assists, and had a 1.4 assist to turnover ratio. A decent enough shooter, 36% from three-point line, 89 for 249, 83% from the free throw line, 39.6% from the field overall, though. So he was maybe an average three-point shooter, but he certainly struggled elsewhere in scoring. So again, as with most walk-ons, with very few exceptions, 2 guys that probably aren't going to factor into anything. They are extra bodies for practice, and I think probably little else in that regard. I would love to be wrong, but I don't imagine either one is going to factor, even though IU has little depth at the guard position. I don't know that a guy who spent 3 years in junior college and struggled to be an efficient player there, I don't know that him or someone coming off of shoulder surgery are guys that are going to step in and make an impact in the Big Ten. So again, I'd love to be wrong about that, but I don't imagine I will be, to be frank. But it's extra bodies, and IU certainly needed that. They already had an open scholarship spot, and that was before Ja'Kai Newton went down with injury. I don't know that we ever really got clarification on what it was. We did get clarification that it was on that same knee that he had previously injured, but doesn't seem like there's a timeline right now for when he'll be back. IU needed extra bodies to help in practice and things like that, walkthroughs, game planning. These guys will help with that. Outside of that, I don't know that they'll have much of a role unless 6 players get suspended for a game at Northwestern again. Maybe then they will have a role with the team, and I hope that never happens again. So they're a pair of fresh bodies, Jordan Rayford and Jackson Creel, but probably a little more than that this season. Still, welcome to the Hoosiers, and I hope they can be productive in some way with Indiana this season. Anything can help with the Hoosiers. A really fun story going on involving Eric Gordon. I want to talk to you guys about that and his bid to play in the Olympics, but not with Team USA. We'll take a look at what's going on there here in just a moment. Let's talk about another sponsor for today, FanDuel. Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long, because right now when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. That feels like an offer too good to be true. But if you bet on the Chiefs, the 49ers, the Ravens, whoever it might be, every time one of those teams wins, you get a bonus bet. This feels like the best offer FanDuel has given us. So be sure you guys jump on it. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl. You'll get a free bonus bet every time they win a game. You can use those on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Let's talk about Eric Gordon, who is doing something quite cool right now. You guys may have seen it. You may not have. It kind of slid under the radar for this weekend, but Eric Gordon helped lead the Bahamas national team to a pair of really big wins over the weekend in Argentina. They were playing an Argentinian team that typically is a strong team globally when it comes to basketball, though their kind of golden generation has come and gone. But the Bahamas had to win a pair of games in Argentina over the weekend. They did it on Sunday behind an incredible performance from Eric Gordon, who, yes, is playing for the Bahamas national team. It shocked me. I tried to look some stuff up about it. Finally got some more details on Monday. His mother is from the Bahamas. He's visited there often. He was a part of Team USA, I believe, back in 2010, and he hasn't been a part of them since. You're allowed a one-time switch, and FIBA has a very subjective rule that they tend to go by, which is, will it help the advancement of the game for the country you switch to? And they determined Eric Gordon switching to the Bahamas worked and fit that criteria. So Eric Gordon is joining Buddy Hield and DeAndre Ayton as two of the notable guys on that Bahamas team to try to get to the Olympics, which we'll talk about in a minute. It's not easy to try to get to the Olympics. But on Sunday, Hield and Ayton struggled. They were 10 of 31 from the field. Eric Gordon took over and was absolutely incredible. He hit some massive shots down the stretch, had 3 3-pointers in the final about 3 minutes. 2 of those came in the final 90 seconds on step-back threes. He had 27 points. His final 3 with 20 seconds to go put the Bahamas up 5, was basically the dagger that helped them win this kind of mini tournament in Argentina. a huge moment for the Bahamas and Eric Gordon. It was really cool scenes. I mean, international play always has a different level of intensity and emotion to it. And this was in Argentina, a raucous crowd that they're playing in front of, and Eric Gordon with some incredible silencers, akin to him playing at Illinois, I believe in an overtime game when he was at IU. He's used to those types of crowds and those types of environments, and similarly was hitting big shots on Sunday. So this moves them to kind of the next stage of this. This Bahamas team there isn't a lot of talent there. Buddy Hield, Eric Gordon, DeAndre Ayton. There is one name that I'm sure a lot of you will remember. Tum Tum Nairn from Michigan State. Lou Rawls, Tum Tum Nairn. He is, I believe, the starting point guard for the Bahamas. He is also an assistant coach on Bowling Green. So when he is not playing for the Bahama national team, he is coaching guys. It's an absolutely wild story. I mean, just imagine Jordan Hall's playing for some national team while serving as an assistant or on the IU coaching staff. It's just so many wild stories tied into this. Bahamas has never made the Olympics or the World Cup, and they now earn one of 24 spots across 4 automatic qualification tournaments next summer. It's a very convoluted, just a long process, basically, that they have to go through, because only 12 teams make the Olympics, and I believe 7 or 8 of those spots are given out automatically through the FIBA World Cup. One of them goes to the host France. The other 7 go to teams based on their performance in the FIBA World Cup that begins on Friday. So none of those are available to the Bahamas. They have to win one of the last 4 of these automatic qualifiers. They'll have to play tournaments next summer. So Eric Gordon got a one-time switch to the Bahamas earlier this summer, and it was a multi-year commitment when he did this, because they'll have to play next summer now to try to get to the World Cup, the Olympics in Paris. Cool story, fun story. Eric Gordon getting a chance to play in the Olympics, potentially alongside at least a current pacer and Buddy Hield. But look up the highlights if you guys can today. Huge shots from him, huge performance from him to help them win that tournament in Argentina. Thanks as always, guys, for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen every single day. Every dayers, again, we'll talk some football, talk some special teams news, whatever we get from fall camp. I believe this will be the last week of fall camp, and then they'll have a normal week of practice next week. So whatever we get from the end of fall camp, we'll bring it to you guys. Follow us on Twitter if you have not already, at @LO_Hoosiers. Subscribe to the podcast. Leave those ratings and reviews that help us out immensely. Most importantly, though, guys, I hope everybody has a great Tuesday. And as always, Ellie up.